guys, welcome back. So today we are looking at lesson 1-5, which is comparing and ordering decimals. So in this we're going to be taking and looking at our decimals and deciding which one's bigger, which one's smaller, and putting them in order if we have more than just two of them. So how can you compare and order decimals? Scientists collected and measured the lengths of different cockroach species. Which cockroach had the greater length, the American or the Oriental cockroach? So here are our different steps. So we're given what each of our cockroaches' lengths are. So we've got the Australian, which is 3 582 thousandths, the Oriental, which is 3 432 thousandths, and the American, which is 3 576 thousandths. So the ones we're focused on are going to be the American and the Oriental. So the Oriental here and the American. So step 1. We want to line up the decimal points and start at the left and compare the digits of the same place value. So let's start by doing that. See if I can get this lifted properly. So we've got our 3.432 and we've got our 3.576. So we've got them ordered. We've got them lined up, decimal places. So now we start at the left. So we start over here with the 3's and we compare the same place values. So the 3's are both in the 1's place. They're both 3. That doesn't help us. They're equal so far. So step 2, find the first place where the digits are different. Well, let's move over to the tenths place. We've got 4 and 5 tenths. They're different. They're not the same value. So now we're going to compare. So 4 in comparison to 5 is what? Is 4 bigger or smaller than 5? It's smaller. Which means that the 3 576 thousandths is the larger of the cockroaches, which is the American. Larger. So the American cockroach is larger than the Oriental cockroach. So that is how we compare. It's all going to be about making sure you have these numbers lined up accurately so that every digit, the same place value is in the same place, so you can compare those appropriate numbers. Okay? All right, so let's test out a few more examples here. So once again, comparing just with 2. So we're going to use our greater than, less than, or equal to. So I used that less than in the last one. So remember, less than is going to look like this. This is less than. This is greater than. And then equal to is our equal sign. So first one, we have 3 692 thousandths. Ooh, there's a light on there. Sorry. 3 692 thousandths and 3 697 thousandths. So what do we start with? We line up the decimal points. So we rewrite them. So we've got 3.692. We've got 3.697. Make sure those decimal points are perfectly in line. Now we look. First place value, the 1's is both 3. So it's the same. We look at the next place value, the tenths. Also the same, it's both 6's. Then we go to the hundredths. They're both 9's, so that doesn't help us. So now we look at the thousandths. We've got a 2 and we have a 7. So 2 is what to 7? Less than, greater than, or equal to? It's less than. Which means this number here, the 300 692 thousandths is less than 3 697 thousandths. All right, let's try another one of those. So we have 7 216 thousandths. And we're comparing it to 7 203 thousandths. So once again, line them up so the decimals are perfectly in line. So we've got 7 and 7. That doesn't help us compare at all. 2 and 2 for our tenths. Once again, doesn't help. Then we have 1 and 0. So here's where our difference is. So 1 compared to 0. Is 1 less than or greater than 0? It's greater than, which means our 7 and 216 thousandths is greater than our 7 and 203 thousandths. So this is what it looks like when we're comparing just two numbers. A little easier than when we get into comparing lists of numbers. So now we're going to have 4 different numbers that we're going to be taking and comparing as we go through here. So same idea though. We still write out all the numbers vertically, line up those decimals, and then compare. So we've got 5 and 540 thousandths. We have 5 and 631 thousandths. We have 5 and 625 thousandths. And we have 5 and 739 thousandths. So we've got all our decimals lined up. We look at the first place value, which is the ones. Every single one is a 5, so that doesn't help us at all. Then we go to the next place value. So here we have a 5, 2 6s, and a 7. So in comparing those values, which is the least, which is the smallest number? 5 is the smallest number because 5 is less than 6 and 6 is less than 7. So that means our first one is going to be this one right here. So 5 and 540 thousandths. So that's our first number. So now in comparing the rest of these, we don't need to use this first one anymore. It's out of our comparison because we've already determined that it's the smallest number. So it doesn't matter the rest of the way. So now we look at the next set of numbers, or we look at what's left. We've got the 6s and we've got the 7. Well, we know 7 is going to be the biggest, so we can ignore this last number for right now. So now what we're doing is we're comparing these two in the middle. So these both have a 6. So now we have to go to the hundredths place where we have a 3 and a 2. Which is smaller, 3 or 2? It'd be the 2. So this will be our second number. So 5 and 625 thousandths will be the second one, which means the other one with the 6 and the 3 is going to be the third in our list. So 5 and 631 thousandths. And last but not least, our 5 and 739 thousandths. So this one takes a little bit more work. You have to look at a lot more numbers, and sometimes you're only looking at a couple numbers to compare, like with these two in the middle, the 2 and the 3. We were comparing just those two and kind of ignoring the first and last ones because we knew they were going to be the first and last numbers of our list. All right, our last one. We have 675 thousandths, 1 and 529 thousandths, 1 and 35 hundredths, and 693 thousandths. So once again, we list these vertically, lining up our decimals. So we're going to have 0.675, 1529.35, 0. Now, one thing you might notice is 3 of these numbers are to the thousandths place, but one of them is only to the hundredths place. So one way, if need be, you can always put a 0 to fill it out to the thousandths. Or if we only had one that went to the tenths place, you could take and add zeros to fill that out to the thousandths to make sure that they all look the same to help you compare. Because sometimes it can get a little confusing when you've got some numbers that are shorter than others. It makes it seem like they must be smaller because they're shorter, but that may not necessarily be the case. So always fill out the rest of the zeros to help you with that, to avoid any confusion. All right, so we've got them all lined up. Now we compare the first digit. Well, look, we already have differences. We've got 2 that are zeros and 2 that are ones. So instead of comparing the ones, we're going to focus on these zeros because they're going to be the smallest because they're 0. So we go to the next value. So 6 and 6. Well, that's the same. Now we have 7 And we have 9, which is smaller, 7 or 9. The 7 is. So we're going to have the 0 and 675 thousandths will be our first number. Now, this other 0 has to be our second number because 0 compared to these 1s is still smaller. So we've got 0 and 693 thousandths. There's our second one. Now we look at the 1s because these are going to give us our 3 and 4 values. So the 1s were both the same. Then we go to the tenths place. Well, we've got a 5 and we have a 3, so they're different. So which is smaller, 5 or 3? The 3 is. So we're going to have 1 and 350 thousandths. And I'm fine with the fact that I added this 0 from the original problem. You can leave that 0 on there because remember from our last lesson, that's what's known as an equivalent an equivalent decimal. So that is perfectly acceptable, and don't worry if you have to add some zeros to fill out to make it so you can compare easier. You don't have to worry about that. I'll understand that you made an equivalent decimal and then wrote that equivalent decimal down. So this is the third place, which means in fourth place is 1 and 529 thousandths. So, like I said, this is all about comparing numbers. So your keyword for this lesson is compare. Compare is your keyword for this lesson because that's what we're looking at. We're comparing two numbers. We're ordering four numbers, but really, if we think about it, when we're taking and ordering these numbers, we're not necessarily looking at all four numbers at a time because typically you've got, like down in this one, we've had two that we really had to compare first, then we focused on comparing the other two. Same thing with this first one here. We had to compare two of them and then the other two after we started by looking at all four. But it's all about comparing them. Line them up vertically. Make sure you've got all the numbers nicely wrote out so you can compare each of those place values. We don't want to have it so that you've got two numbers really close together that are the same as one number in the next because you're not going to know what number goes with which place value, and that's crucial in comparing those place values. So make sure you write super nice and neat so you can see that and have those decimals lined up. Alrighty? Alright, remember your keyword for this lesson is compare. Have a wonderful day.